Welcome in, everybody. The Ken's 5 Weather Classroom. Chief Meteorologist Bill Taylor alongside Meteorologist Meagan Massey on our Tuesday edition of Cloudy with a Chance of Learning.
Right, and social distancing, Bill.
We are 6 feet apart.
Yes.
That's the rule right now, and you should all be practicing. So I wanted to tell you, I don't know if I got a chance, but Cloudy with a Chance of Learning from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs from my daughter, Carissa. I think it's a great idea. You know, we were thinking, what could be the name of this? And tomorrow, I'm going to be starting to read some weather books, too.
Okay.
And I think we definitely have, that one's not going to be tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll show you what tomorrow's is. That's going to be the
So are you going to make the voices,
key.
too? That's the big question.
Jeremy Baker was with me one day. I did read to a class. I get into it.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be a delight.
Paul does, too.
Yeah, Paul does, too.
Paul does, too. He was talking about recording a book that he was reading yesterday, so...
So yeah, what we hope to do is throughout the several weeks that we're going to be providing the weather classroom is that you get to know and meet each meteorologist on the team. Meagan Massey and Andrew Wilson, you guys know each other pretty good.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. In fact, we had a big step in our lives, so he proposed to me last week.
There's
Very
love in the
excited.
atmosphere.
Last Tuesday. There you go. I know you've been commenting on all of our posts with Love is in the Atmosphere. So.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm
We're
so
excited.
happy for you too.
Thank you.
So you guys joined us how many months ago now?
August. Early August for me and about mid-August for him.
And it's wonderful that they're both here, have added so much to our team, and we couldn't be more excited about what we're able to do now with this weather classroom. Now, one of the things I wanted to bring up, we had a lot of feedback on YouTube as well as here on Facebook. And it's hard to get through a lesson and answer all questions. I want to try to save all that for Friday. We'll do a good Q&A on Friday. That'll give us time to go through a lot of the comments and questions and even some of the topic ideas and follow up with you guys a lot. So please be patient with us. This is our first time to do this, and we'll all kind of learn along the way.
Definitely, I think that's a great idea too. We had a lot of science-y and astronomy questions, which I really like, and weather questions as well. So hopefully we answer some of your weather questions today when it's about severe weather, because Bill, the spring season is here, of course.
Here it comes. You know, there's no such thing as like a tornado season. There's a time of year they're more likely, but we've seen tornadoes in every month, including February here in San Antonio. Hurricanes are typically those 6 months that the waters are warm enough to support them. Unlike any other, though, I mean, because the rest can happen at any time. In fact, I had a good suggestion from my daughter last night. We should do a topic one day on natural disasters and talk tsunamis, earthquakes, as well as hurricanes, you know, and cover all of them. So we're going to have that in the future. All right, so I'm checking out, here to learn with my third grader. Thanks, Christina, for joining us. Vanessa's here, working on the plumbing, Roy. All right. Hey, man.
Do what you gotta do.
Everybody's welcome. Eliana, how are you? Good to see you. First grade in Lavernia. So glad you're here, because what we're going to talk about today is severe weather. And when I think about this, Meagan, it truly is the most important thing we do at Ken's 5 Television. Our weather department has to keep you ahead of storms because weather can be life-threatening.
It can be. And, you know, I think the number one thing before we dip into severe weather on what it is exactly, knowing your county. And we were talking about that on our Facebook Live. I was at home this morning and we did a Facebook Live and I said, hey, let Bill know what county you live in. That's
Good.
the real test. Know your county.
Now, Eliana mentioned Lavernia. Isaiah wants to know how big a tornado can get. Yeah, we'll talk, because we're going to break down tornadoes in a future episode. Lavernia. So, Riker, Kenley, what county is that in? See, this is what our first topic is within Severe Weather 101. In which county do you live? Because when we talk about warnings and watches, there's a separate indication. First is the Severe Prediction Center is who sends out a watch. And a watch will be for a region, but a warning will be for a county.
Right, and so folks at the National Weather Service office in New Braunfels, they'll kind of tag team with the Storm Prediction Center and they'll come up with a game plan, hence that watch. So they'll release several weather balloons into the atmosphere, you know, take the vertical data just to give us, hey, what ingredients are in place to support severe weather? Do we have those ingredients, and which counties should be included in those watches?
And what's important is those ingredients will lead to what kind of severe weather is more likely. Wind shear is a more tornadic environment. Cold air aloft, a more hail environment. And so those kind of key ingredients are going to indicate which watch we have. Bexar County, way to go, Britt. That's Kendall County for Cynthia, way to go. See, this is what I'm talking about.
Nice.
Floresville. So Isabel and Brooke, know your counties. And this is every family member, because guess what? Maybe you're the one in front of the television when the warning is issued. And you've got to inform your family. You could be 6 years old and you're going to be the one who leads the family in what to do next. Because the most important thing, when that warning's issued, where you are and know your county and know your city. Because once we have a severe thunderstorm, we've got to know where it's going and how long it's going to be there.
Right, and I know my parents, for example, they're kind of in between, Dallas and Rockwall counties, so kind of take that into account. What county is next to you? Most of the time our weather moves from west to east, so from left to right. So it's important to know, hey, what county is west of me? If it's Bexar County and there's a tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning in place, you're probably thinking, okay, there's potential for that storm to move toward me in my neighborhood at my house too.
Now remember, it used to be that the National Weather Service warning would come out for that county and surrounding counties that could be affected in the next, say hour, right? But what's really cool is that in the last, I would say 5 years now at least, I really don't know exactly when they started putting out the polygon instead of just doing counties, okay? There used to be a time where just go county by county. Now there's a polygon drawn that could cover up to 4 or 5 counties.
Right.
And you'll see a list of, wow, we're under a warning, but it's really key to look where that polygon is, because that's where the weather's going to occur.
And it goes back to knowing your city too. Where are you in that county? So that's important. And the biggest difference between watch and warning is watch multiple counties, whereas a warning, very little counties. Like
exactly.
You were saying, it's important to know that too.
Know the times. The times are always key. The watch will be for several hours, say from a current to 11 p.m. Could be 6, 7 hours at a time.
Right.
Warnings typically, they can be as long as an hour to an hour and a half, just really depending on the speed of the storm. But you never see a warning for 4 or 5 hours unless you get into a flood situation. Flood warnings can go that long, especially along our area rivers. What I love as an analogy between the watch and warning, say you're making cupcakes. You've got all your ingredients and they're on the counter and we're even putting them in the bowl. But do we have cupcakes ready to eat? Not yet.
Not yet.
I like the bowl.
Okay.
So,
a lot of people do.
Yeah, full disclosure, I get in trouble every time.
Cookie dough, yeah.
Yeah, you know
I'm
how it is.
guilty of that.
All right, come on, don't judge. But that's, the ingredients are there, okay?
Yeah.
Not until we open the oven after 45 minutes at 375 or whatever it is, and we have a cupcake ready to eat, that's the warning. So the watch, all the ingredients are on the table. The warning is when they're coming out of the oven. They're ready.
That's a good analogy.
I love that one. And see, this is one way that we do this. Now, these are real snapshots of a real-life situation. The watch you can see over the Texas Hill Country does not include Bexar County for San Antonio, but you see Medina, then you see Uvalde, then you see Kinney, then you're up to Edwards, Real, Bandera, Kerr. These are all the counties that are under that watch on the left. And then look, there's that polygon I was talking about. So the warning, this one would be for Valverde and Edwards counties. But if you notice, that polygon is not covering Rock Springs. It's not covering Del Rio. So again, know your cities, because you might be outside the polygon and be safe for a couple of hours before this hits.
And of course, these graphics are not current, but looking at...
these are not current.
These are not current, but looking at that severe thunderstorm watch, notice how Bexar County, where San Antonio is, they're not under that watch, but it's still important to be prepared anyway, because you're around it. For those in and around a watch, definitely be prepared. Know that action plan, and if a warning happens to pop up in San Antonio, you're already prepared and you can take action. This
is the time that you can start looking at what action you would take. In fact, I want to encourage all of you to be thinking about that today and show me what your action plan is on Friday. So here's a little sidestep right now before we go on with severe weather coverage. On Friday, you see the curriculum below us. Okay, there it is, the curriculum below us. On Friday, I want you to share your stories. I know a lot of you have experienced severe weather. Maybe you've seen hail, maybe you've seen a tornado, maybe you've been on the coast and had to evacuate during a hurricane. Write those out, whatever age. write out a severe weather story that you can share with us on Friday. I've got my nieces and nephews watching in Louisiana, and yesterday's topic was the atmosphere, and I want to just show you, I'll zoom it in. Look, Braylon and Wyatt drew the atmosphere. I love this, and these are the kind of things I want to encourage you to do and share with us. I know it's out of focus, but you see the planet, and they drew each layer of our atmosphere, from troposphere all the way up to exosphere. And this is wonderful. And this is what I want to share on Fridays. Pictures that you've drawn if you're kinder, pre-K, or first grade. Stories that you can tell if you're third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and up. I mean, just kind of a open, free forum on Fridays, okay?
And it's important, too, to put the hashtag KENS5Eyewitness with those photos.
Please. Yeah, put the photos online on social media. And then if you want to email those to me, and I can, get those, it's btaylor@kens5.com, so I can share pictures and stories on Fridays. Now, all right, so back before we move on here, the watch, be prepared. Have your plan, know what you're going to do, and we'll get to that in a second. And then the warning. That's when you take action. Those are the biggest differences between the two.
And know your county and know your city. So those are 3 quiz questions, in my opinion. Difference between watch and warning. What city and what county do you live in?
Wait, are we quizzing? Is the final comprehensive?
Is it Friday?
Oh,
we don't know. Could
we
be
might.
A pop quiz.
There could be some pop quizzes in our Weather Classroom future. I like
Minds
it.
quizzes, yeah. There you go.
All right, elements of a severe thunderstorm. Because you can have a thunderstorm, but then you can have a severe thunderstorm. And there's definitely a difference. Thunderstorms are creating thunder and you're getting heavy rain. That doesn't mean it's severe. I mean, it could build into a severe storm, and that's when we start watching very closely to see if it's building and producing more and more lightning with every sweep, or is it producing less lightning and shrinking or kind of blowing out. Normally thunderstorms, when they're tightly packed and you watch that structure and that vertical column, you see whether or not it's that structure that's going to support a building situation.
And how do we see these storms? Radar. In fact, our radar is in New Braunfels.
That's right. Looking in on the city is always the best perspective, because the mass population of San Antonio, if you've got the radar on top of the same city, you can get rain fade in a thunderstorm event, just like you do when you have a satellite to receive your KENS 5 television, right? And the satellite's out because the rain is so hard that it can't receive the signal. Well, if we've got that rain on top of San Antonio and our radar's in San Antonio, we could lose that feed when it's hitting the major population.
Exactly.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
All right, so what makes a storm severe? Megan.
So 1-inch hail, and typically that's about a quarter size. Now, this is important too. If you're ever sending a safe hail report, always compare it to an object. Like a lime, a quarter, your cell phone, something to give us an idea. And even the National Weather Service in San Antonio, Austin, that perspective, so we can get that hail report and know the size and compare it to a common object. So that's really helpful here. But that's one of the criteria is 1-inch hail in diameter or greater. And we compare it to items too. Bailey's
10 years old. I want to get a couple questions in. How do we know if a storm is coming? Well, one of the ways is you have the KENS 5 app on a phone, okay? If you're 10 years old and hopefully the television is on, you have some kind of broadcast going, because we will alert you immediately, both through the app on KENS 5 and kens5.com. Of course, on Facebook, Severe Weather Situations, we're usually live from where we're sitting right now with continuous coverage, especially where it's hitting, depending on how severe it is. So that's how you always, just stay ahead of it and pay attention to forecasts. We're days out. Usually we see ingredients days ahead of time that a severe weather setup's coming.
And that's when the Storm Prediction Center is very useful. They issue, the 1 through 5 outlooks that we often show in our forecast. But talking about the app, we have that free radar available too, so you can know when a storm is moving toward you.
The most important thing, once that storm hits, get KENS 5 television on air, or we're on Facebook, because then you know where it's moving. Thanks, Bailey. All right, Renix and Eve are in Comal County. Very good. See, Alyssa, how does lightning form? Okay, we're going to save that for a future episode, but definitely putting it down. How big can hail get? Largest hailstorm. This is from 5th grade at Stubing Ranch. Thanks so much. The largest was a volleyball-size hailstone. It was in Kansas. Yeah, it was unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah. We had softball-size hail. It was about 3 or 4 years ago now, right? 2016. It was the costliest hailstorm in Texas history. We had one in Fort Worth, but here in San Antonio, it was from Helotes all the way across the Universal City. that swath was softball size hail, and you all remember the damage that did.
And that's one of the top threats here. It's flash flooding and also hailstorms in San
How is
Antonio.
thunder made? That's a good one. And again, we're going to do the anatomy of a thunderstorm. You can see that's coming up on Thursday, so we'll be covering that. How do you know if a flood's coming? That's when the flood watch, remember, flood watch is what, of course, is a bigger issue. All right, back to a thunderstorm and what makes it severe. So we talked about hail size, hail the size of a quarter, not just hail, because you could have pea-sized hail and it's not a severe thunderstorm.
Right, and it all depends on the updrafts and the downdrafts. You know, the picture behind us clearly shows a downdraft, and so you can get severe storm winds of 58 miles per hour or greater. But you know, an updraft can carry a hailstone, and then it cycles through that cloud, and all that's going to do is layer water and ice and freeze it, and then the hailstone just gets large itself, larger
What's
and
so
larger.
cool is that you can actually see, because again, that updraft that Megan's talking about can reach speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. So it keeps everything up at the top, and every trip that hailstone makes, it's collecting more ice at the top. It goes on its descent, it gets picked back up on that updraft, and it just continues. So what's really cool is if you get a hailstone, the first thing you should do, take that picture next to something for a relative, size comparison, but get it in the freezer, okay? And get it super cold so it stays nice and cold, and then take it out, and with adult supervision, cut that thing open, and you'll see rings inside the hailstone. Sometimes the hailstones themselves are translucent enough that you can see the rings inside them
It reminds
without
me of
cutting
a tree,
it open.
right?
Exactly.
And you could see the rings like a tree.
It's
Yeah.
so cool, and it really is true. I mean, if you Google, hail pictures, and you'll see some of those translucent ones, and you can actually see the rings inside. So wind speeds are important. Remember, we can get gusty winds of 35, 40 miles an hour. That's a tropical storm force wind. It's still not a severe thunderstorm. So you could have pea-sized hail, winds of 30, and we're not issuing a warning. Or National Weather Service is not issuing a warning, and we're not telling you about it because it just hasn't reached that criteria.
Right, correct.
Still dangerous, and that's a storm we have to watch very closely and be tracking. And it can still do some, a 40-mile-an-hour wind will do some damage. All right, now, the big boy, the tornado. What happens with a tornado between a watch and a warning?
This is something we always watch on radar, of course. And one tool that helps us is velocity, that big weather word. Velocity, it has the colors of green and red. And typically when they're close together, that can indicate rotation. So that's when we sometimes get the tornado warning in place. And that means, take action. And we, of course, need to know the best places to go within our households when we're under that tornado warning. And that just goes back to knowing your county and knowing the city you live in.
So we've got a future episode on radar, but I love to take this moment to tell you the technology difference from when, say, your grandparents and my grandparents were growing up and a tornado. First of all, my grandparents, there was no radar. But then the first generation of radar, you just saw the rain, okay? Now, current generations of radar, you can see the water being whipped around. And you get that shape to the radar return, and we call that the hook echo, just like a hook. It makes that shape. It's dark red, it's even turning purple, and it's usually the back end of a thunderstorm, and you'll start seeing that hook echo. Well, now we know there's rotation. There might not be a tornado, but the water's whipping around, and we have the beginning of what's called that vortex that begins to form one. So the radar indicates that rotation. There will be a tornado warning issued. So that's the biggest difference. Years ago, it had to be a trained eye. It had to be law enforcement, a National Weather Service employee, a spotter. National Weather Service hires spotters just like you. And you don't have to be an adult to do that. You can be, I think, 13, 14 years old and be trained to be a spotter. They would have to verify that they saw it before a warning was issued. Well, now we can see it on radar, and that's a big difference because it can only be minutes.
And I really want to talk about the storm spotter aspect because I did this as a kid.
Did you?
Skywarn training classes.
In Dallas area?
In the Dallas area,
Awesome.
But they're all over Texas. In fact, they're all over the nation.
All
and
over.
Our local National Weather Service offices will host this. Sometimes TV people do too. And yeah, they're actually doing a virtual this year, so you still get a chance to meet, because
Isn't that cool?
we know severe weather never takes a vacation. So it's still important to know, and these indicators, you know, why is a tornado watch issued, a tornado warning, and they still have those Skywarn classes to this day. So if you look up National Weather Service San Antonio and the Austin office, they'll give you a full calendar of those.
It's really useful information. It's free and it's important. And then you can also, again, be a trained spotter and work with those folks and keep us all ahead of the storm. Ezra wants to know, can a tornado jump off the ground and go on the ground? Absolutely. We've seen tornadoes bounce like a ball. You know, sometimes they'll touch down and it goes back up and comes down a mile later. You know, I mean, it just really, every single tornado is different. We've seen tornadoes join together and get larger. We've had F4s, and one of the things that happens when we put it on the scale of F0 all the way to F5, it's called, actually now they changed it, EF several years back, Enhanced Fujita Scale, named for Ted Fujita, a big researcher years ago on tornadoes. And they found out that in like those big wedge tornadoes that you see like in Oklahoma, North Texas,
Yep.
there are smaller tornadoes within that wedge. I mean, it is a scary situation, but when that vortex is so large, and it can be up to half a mile wide, within that wedge, there have been cases where smaller tornadoes are active.
And I think something we really need to talk about is outdoor warning versus indoor warning. Outdoor tornado sirens. Indoor would be a weather radio, your phone, make sure your emergency alerts are on. You can go on your iPhone and/or Android settings and see if those emergency alerts are on. That's so important to receive those tornado alerts.
We have a tornado warning. Let's run this scenario. Now, kids and everybody, this is how you start thinking about your plan. Because again, you have to have the plan before it occurs. When it's occurring, you have literally seconds to maybe a minute or two to prepare. Because tornadoes happen quickly. If we give you 10 minutes warning, that's a lot in the case of a tornado. Hurricanes, we know weeks ahead of time. That's, you know, great because of technology. Tornadoes can happen in an instant. So the most important thing, the safest place in your home, this is your plan, an interior room. What that means is that the wall, on the other side of the walls that surround you, you're still inside. Okay, like I'm looking at a wall now in the Ken's 5 newsroom that's windows, so on the other side of that is outside, right? That's called an exterior wall. Here's another one over here to my left, that's an exterior wall. But this one to my right, this is an interior wall, because on the other side of this wall is our news desk, and you know, the building continues. So it's an interior room. It's typically, as you can see this diagram, again, so well done by graphic goddess Meagan Massey.
Thank you.
This is beautiful. See how those walls are still inside? You've got, you know, this is a very safe room because it's surrounded by interior walls and away from windows.
Away from windows. I think that's the key thing there. And, you know, we were just talking about damaging wind gusts. It's also important to stay away from windows and that it's not only
And a
if
severe
there's
thunderstorm. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Not only a tornado warning, but a severe thunderstorm warning. Stay away from windows.
Most of what happens in tornado damage is sometimes not the vortex tornado itself. It's the debris field, the things that are flying around.
Right.
And remember, once that tornado stops and the vortex opens up and it dissipates, those things are still airborne and flying everywhere at 200 to 300 miles per hour in some cases. So it's very dangerous. So hallway on the lowest floor, a stairwell, these are wonderful spots if you're in a multi-level dwelling or a building. A lot of times in your schools, you'll go into the hallways, right? If you've had a tornado drill, I know you grew up doing tornado drills in North Texas.
Definitely.
Tornado Alley, North Texas. Not here. We're not in Tornado Alley. As a matter of fact, it's flooding that we're now talking about. We're in Flash Flood Alley in San Antonio. If you were to take, like the city of San Antonio is built on a hill. Like if we look at it a bird's eye view on a map, right? If we were to take San Antonio and look at it from a cross-sectional view, it wouldn't be flat, it'd be like this. I mean, we're on a downhill slope. So from the Texas Hill Country, say Kerrville, into San Antonio, there's a good 2,000 to 3,000 foot drop. So when it rains like crazy, you get a real heavy thunderstorm, all that water's raining downhill.
It'll run off, exactly. So topography is very important.
Big word, whoa.
Topography.
That could be on a quiz. You better
That could
earmark
be.
that one.
Pop quiz maybe Friday. If there is one, it's Bill.
Area, right.
Bill made the quiz, not me.
Area wants to know, what do what to do during a severe storm. So Felicia,
Good
yeah,
question.
that's a great question. And like we said, in a severe storm, whether it be thunderstorm or tornado threat, and it's again in the warning situation, not the watch. The watch, we're watching for it. The warning, take action. That's when we're in the interior room, away from windows. And in case there is a window, we're covering ourselves. We're in the bathtub. Why the bathtub? Well, because there's pipes going into it. It's grounded. It's, a very sturdy structure. Normally some houses will be blown apart, but you'll see the bathroom, it remains intact.
Right. And talking about tornadoes, I know we had a few questions about, how strong can a tornado get? We were talking about an EF0 up to an EF5 tornado, which is the largest, most powerful. And it's all based on wind speed, which I think would be a great topic for us. But something to know is you don't know the scale of that tornado until after the fact.
That's a great point, Megan.
Yes.
They go in for storm surveys afterwards. They
Right.
study what it did structurally, if that's a word, what it did to structures, what it did to a metal roof, what it did to a car, what it's doing, and they look at that, and you determine using, data that says, okay, this is what occurred, this is how much that weighs, this is, it's not during. We don't have instrumentation
Exactly.
like in the movie Twister. Remember Dorothy, where they put the sensors up into they've been trying to work on that. It's never been perfected. That technology was worked on, but it never really
I've seen Dorothy
happened.
in person.
Have you really?
Yeah, at NSSL. National
very cool.
Severe Storms Laboratory.
The
in
lab,
Norfolk.
yeah, which is Norman, Oklahoma, right?
In Oklahoma.
Yeah.
SPC's there too.
So did it work, or how? I mean,
I know they had it on display, but that's not something we really talked about on the tour per se.
because it's
that's-
kind of
that's
a
interesting. That's
there's
an
a
interesting
sucking
topic.
motion. I mean, everything that's in the tornado, because of the physics of what's happening, gets pulled up into it, and because of the velocity, it stays elevated or in the tornado vortex. So conceivably you could get sensors up there, right? But it just hasn't been perfected. All right, moving to flooding, because again, this is flash flood alley.
It is.
Flash flood watch. That means that flooding could happen. Now, when we use the term, it's not just flooding, right? Why do we say flash flooding? Because it happens within 3 to 5 hours of the beginning of the rain. So it's within hours that the rain started that we're starting to see some flooding. That's called flash flooding.
And an important note on a flash flood watch is if our ground is already saturated from so much recent rain, that's typically when we see a flash flood watch. North Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they had a flash flood watch, but they've had above normal rainfall for this year so far. In
See?
fact, it is breaking records. So they're going to see more flash flood watches versus us where we still have that drought in place.
So think about the glass full or a sponge soaked.
Yep.
There's just nothing to absorb. There's nowhere to put additional water. And so it goes immediately to the fourth stage of our water cycle. We're going to do that in the future too, runoff. Because every bit of rain that falls wants to find a body of water. It's going to use a tributary, it's going to use a river, it's going to get back to its beginning place, and the cycle continues. It'll be then evaporated again, right? Okay, so we go just like we did with thunderstorms or tornadoes. We go from watch, which is possible, we're watching for it, to warning when we have flooding. And again, it's so key to know your city and county, because now there's a warning issued, and that means we have flooding occurring somewhere.
Definitely.
All right, we live, as you mentioned, in a flood-prone area, that downhill slope. So again, flash flood alley here in South Texas. Let's talk about lightning.
Let's do it.
This is cool stuff. Now, lightning is a weather phenomenon that is incredible when you talk about the heat that's produced in lightning. Like when lightning hits a tree, the tree explodes because of the rapid heating of the sap inside that tree. Okay, that's what explodes the tree. It boils it and explodes it, because an average lightning bolt is said to be about 60,000 degrees Fahrenheit, about the temperature of the surface of the sun.
And I love this saying, when thunder roars,
Go indoors. Say that with us. When thunder roars, go indoors. Lightning used to be the #1 killer in nature before we had the sophistication of radars. Here's what happens. If you hear thunder, lightning can strike where you're standing. If you're outside, lightning can strike where you're standing. If you don't have to see it. If you hear it, lightning can strike there. It's happened where thunderstorms are 5 up to 10 miles away and lightning strikes. because you're going cloud to cloud. There's electricity in the clouds. Remember that. Who was our nation's first weatherman that said, I wonder if there's electricity up in their clouds?
Could that be on the pop quiz on Friday?
That could be a pop quiz question on Friday,
Hints.
boys
So
and
many
girls.
hints.
Hints. That's what we're saying. We're not going to play get you or got you. We're going to try to inform and instruct. So, yeah, don't forget, Benjamin Franklin, always known as the nation's first weatherman, said, I wonder if there's electricity going on. And he rolled that kite up, tied a little key on the end of that string, and sure enough, it got charged. And he knew, okay, even without lightning, there's electricity going on in the clouds you see, even without seeing lightning. So it's very important. When thunder roars, go indoors. What's wonderful, like at our area stadiums for football games, we have lightning sensors that can pick up when those positive and negatives are beginning to form and we're starting to get a lightning strike forming. That's what happens, and those sirens will go off.
In different football games and baseball games, they have a certain radius. If lightning were to strike in that radius, they would hold the game. Mm-hmm. They would pause it.
Because you're on a field, you're in a pool, anything where you're the tallest object, the pool changes because of water, and water will not ground electricity. So if electricity is put into the water, the entire body of water is charged. And if you're in that water, you're charged. What radar to see if storms are, watch radar rather, to see if storms are near. Okay, now we also have an equation. You may have heard of this before, but when you time the time between the lightning flash and the thunder clap, that's how you can tell how far you are from the thunderstorm. So let's say you get lightning, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, thunder. Okay, that's about a mile away. Most estimates will tell us. But the key is to do it again. Because after the first time we got 5 on the first, right? Then we see lightning again. 1, 2, 3, 4, thunder. So we went from 5. The second time we did it was 4. If we're dropping in number each time, the storm is moving towards us. Wherever we are, the storm is coming. And just the opposite is true. If the first time we do it, we only get to 3 before the thunder, and then we get to 4, and then we get to 5, that means the storm's moving away from you.
That's a good thing to know, too. That's something I always did when I was a little kid.
You did? You did
Yeah.
the counting? See?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Big weather geek here.
Kruger Elementary, Jaden, how fast do winds get during a severe storm? Great question, Jaden. So for a severe storm, at least 58 miles per hour on the estimated storm speed. And what's beautiful is that the technology of radar will tell us not only wind speed, but also whether or not there's hail and whether or not there's rotation. Remember, all those key things are now being picked up by a radar. And that's why we can issue that warning and give you the extra time you'll need to take action. Worst storm in the USA, Veda wants to know. Wow. There's been several. It would be hurricanes for sure on the worst storm. The highest wind speed ever recorded from a tornado was Oklahoma City, 1999. 300, I think it was 25 to 30. 325, 330. I mean, it's unbelievable. That means a pine needle would go into a fire hydrant at that wind speed. A pine needle, you know what a pine, I mean, you can, bend it in your hand. At that velocity, at 300 miles an hour, it'll go into cement. How does it have rings? Yeah, Veda, great question. Because of the trips, we're talking about the hailstone inside the thunderstorm. So each ring would be a trip it took to the top. Lightning, how big does it get? Michelle, great question. Lightning can be a small, we've seen thick, incredible bolts. We've seen small, you see the spiders sometimes across the sky, right? One of the things I want to tell you about lightning, you'll often hear people call heat lightning. There's no such thing.
That's a myth.
Heat does not produce lightning.
Right.
It doesn't produce lightning. What's happening is you have a thunderstorm that's so tall, because what normally happens is it's a spring or summer, right, where you're producing those big, tall thunderstorms. They go miles high, okay? And let's say we're in San Antonio and there's a thunderstorm over New Braunfels. Well, it was a spring day. We hit 85 or 90. It was a warm afternoon, right? And we've got some evening thunderstorms. And what's happening is it's not even raining. It might even be partly cloudy where you are. And you're seeing a flash of lightning in the sky so far away that you can't hear the thunder. You can only see the flash. Oh, that's heat lightning. It got so hot today. No. So what you're seeing the top of a thunderstorm so many miles away That's all you'll see. You won't hear the thunder.
And it can strike in a place more than once, too. That's another myth.
Lightning has struck in plenty of places more than once.
Right. So I know that's a myth out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Good one. How can you predict a tornado? Good one, Mary. So most of the time it's the ingredients that we see coming in place. And the Severe Prediction Center, as Meagan mentioned, does a 5-day outlook every day. And right now we have 0 chance, but you'll see on a 0 to 5 scale, we've shown this on the air, the different prediction, and it's days out, like day 2 or 3 could have a good chance of seeing severe weather. And it's usually like we're going to have a cold front, we've got warm moist air in place, we've got good vertical wind shear. And
a southeast wind.
Wind shear means as we're going up, the wind speeds are increasing fast. Right. That's what wind shear is, okay? So when you're going up from the Earth's surface, higher in altitude, wind speeds are increasing the whole way.
Right. And you know, a wind shear is important for hurricanes. Cynthia Cook was saying, how do hurricanes form? And wind shear, that's a good example. You want low wind shear so it doesn't rip that hurricane apart.
So a hurricane, remember, it's an area of low pressure. It's a cyclone. And when it gets out over the open, warm waters of the Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, that's what it feeds on. If you like pizza, I love pizza. We talked about lasagna. I'm a big food guy. Love it. Well, that's what they feed. Their favorite food is warm water. And that's what takes those storms up to new heights. And we'll get into hurricanes because I love hurricanes. I mean, that's a great topic.
Tropical meteorology.
Believe me,
that's a great topic.
We have to have them. As destructive as they are, we need them. And that's just a little teaser. I'll explain that in future episodes.
With radar and satellite is so important when tracking a hurricane. And here's a pop quiz question. What level of the atmosphere do satellites fly in?
Where are the satellites? We covered that yesterday, right?
Did.
It's the International Space Station, and a number of our satellites are in which layer of our atmosphere? Remember, troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, exosphere. And Braylon and Wyatt did a beautiful picture illustrating.
That was impressive.
I love it. Yeah. And again, I'm encouraging you, anything you heard today, draw me a picture. Any stories you have. I saw Cynthia mention she's been in a tornado warning. I want to have that story to tell on Friday. btaylor@kens5.com for some of those stories. Post them. Ken's 5 Eyewitness on your Facebook, on your Twitter. Just make sure to tag us and we can all share it and really kind of get this community going. Good
Remember
stuff.
the hashtag. That's important so we can find it.
Joaquin, how fast can a tornado spin? Yes, so those spin speeds can reach up to 300 miles an hour. And when we talked about enhanced Fujita, one of the differences, it also covers what damage it does. So you can go from extreme damage to catastrophic damage when you go from, say, an EF3 to an EF5. Okay, big difference.
And there's a big difference between straight line wind damage and tornado damage. Typically, straight line wind damage, all the damage will lay in one direction, whereas tornado damage, it's more scattered in nature.
Isabel and Brooke, how do double tornadoes form? Hi, Isabel. Hi, Brooke. Glad you're here. So a lot of times, the movie Twister does a good job in that sense of showing you, and at one point, there's a lot of inaccuracies in it, so take it for what it's worth. It's Hollywood. But when two tornadoes, sometimes they can join together. It's just an accident. It doesn't have a rhyme or reason. They're just close enough and they join together. It happened with Superstorm Sandy. If you ever want to look into how that happened with a low pressure area and a decaying hurricane, they came together and hit New Jersey, one of the worst hurricanes in the state's history across the East Coast. All right, what do we have when we don't have anywhere safe to go? Okay, that's a great question.
Great question.
Get low. I mean, remember, you want to be away from windows and debris. Say you're outside. Say you hear a thunderstorm and you're you're on a farm and get low and crunch down as a ball because you don't want to be the high. Do not get under a tree. The tree will probably get hit.
Away from
it's going to hit the highest, object. And if you're the highest object, it could hit you. So lightning, quick story before we wrap up on our Tuesday edition. Lightning hit my driveway.
Wow.
Yeah, it was 2000. See, Peyton was a baby, so it was 2001. No, Peyton was born in 2006. It was 2007. This is when it happened. 2007, and we had a thunderstorm. I was here. It was like 9:30 at night, and the lightning bolt hit right where the driveway meets the sidewalk in front of my house. Now, I had 6, 7 trees in the front yard. It's just a miracle that it didn't hit one of those trees or the house. Well, my wife was inside with the girls. They were upstairs getting ready for bed. They were actually in bed reading, to be honest. And it was like a bomb went off because, again, she thought it hit the house. And she came downstairs with the girls screaming, of course, the house alarms going off. All the house alarms on the street were going off. And our neighbor, God bless him, Al, never forget, he came to the door. I wasn't there. Again, I'm here at Ken's. And I didn't predict that thunderstorm. That's what the firefighters all asked. Wait, this is Bill Taylor's house? Did he predict this?
Wow.
I said, no, I didn't get that. I'm not that good. Like, honey, there's a thunderstorm that's going to produce lightning. And it's going to hit our driveway. No, I'm not that good. Well, it hit, and it went up. There's rebar in the driveway. There's metal in the driveway for the cement. It carried that charge into the house and blew out random things. It blew out our AC units. It blew out our 220 panel that controls all the electricity in the house. All the TVs were fine. All the computers were on surge protectors. They all worked. It was incredible. But that led to my daughter Peyton had a real fear of weather. And it lied dormant for a few years because she was only a baby. But when she got to the age of about 3, 4, even cloudy skies would scare her. If it started raining, she would not want to leave the house. We had to get therapy for her to get through those times because we get severe thunderstorms. We get weather here. Every time she was scared to death.
And I want to piggyback off that because when I was little, believe it or not, I was terrified of storms too. But learning about them and how they worked really helped me. Not only that, but we had meteorologists read at our classrooms, and we would watch videos like this that would help us kind of cope and say, okay, lightning's not going to come into my bedroom or anything like that, strike my house, just kind of be more realistic about it, if that makes sense.
So was it the knowledge? Was that the difference when you were old enough?
Knowing more how it worked, getting involved with Skywarn and all of that really helped me.
The technology we have keeps us ahead of these storms better than ever before. I understand if you have that fear. Like I said, my daughter had it. But we got those strategies for her so that she could deal with it because it will be a part of your life for the rest of your life. We can't do anything to stop severe weather. It will always happen. The only thing you can do is prepare for it, right? We can outthink it. We can be ahead of it. And because of technology, that's when it becomes important and you know what to do. And the more you know, knowledge is always power. And that will always conquer that fear.
So Gregory had asked, do hurricanes and tornadoes happen at the same time? That's a great question.
Great question.
Yes, they can. The outer bands of hurricanes that go counterclockwise. So think of a clock going from 12 to 12. It's going the opposite direction. The outer bands, those outside storms of a hurricane, can produce tornadoes. It just depends if we have the ingredients in place, like we've been talking about.
So, instance, 1986, Hurricane Gilbert. Now, I wasn't here, but I studied that hurricane. It was incredible. There was a satellite image of that hurricane where the only part of the Gulf of Mexico you could see was the eye. I'm not lying. It took up the entire Gulf of Mexico. It moved due west. In fact, it had the record for the lowest barometric pressure for a while. Wow. It was down to like 888 millibars, which is apocalyptic low. I mean, that's incredible, okay? Anyway, it took a left turn to hit Mexico. One of the squall lines came up into San Antonio and produced 2 EF3 tornadoes in the city. Did extensive damage near Kelly Air Force Base, also an apartment complex on the northwest side. And that is speaking to that. Those squall lines from a hurricane, they don't normally produce big tornadoes, but they can. And that's where it happens, is that a hurricane will, in those squall lines, produce tornadoes. Good stuff.
And let's talk about something that hit closer to home. Hurricane Harvey also produced multiple tornadoes on the outer bands over parts of the southeast, like Alabama, Mississippi, into Louisiana, and also Georgia.
Liliana was in Floresville when that tornado hit. God bless you. That was a bad one. Hit the high school, did extensive damage. Can a tornado pick up fish from streams or rivers? Okay. Can Sharknado really happen? I mean, is that what we're getting to here? You think about...
I'm going to let Bill take that question.
It's never really happened. I mean, conceptually, I guess, maybe, you know what I'm saying? But it would not... Tornadoes don't go underwater, like that suction does not occur beneath the surface of water. So to take something out of the water is nearly impossible. I mean, I understand the concept. You know, anything can be up into the vortex and stay in there. Like if you take the bucket of water and you swing it around, it's halfway full. If you swing it around fast enough, not a drop will come out. Same principle of physics, that when that's up into the vortex, it won't drop out until that vortex dissipates. I've got to show, okay, we're going to close this with a picture from Wyatt and Braylon.
Oh, that's nice.
They look at this. They already drew pictures of, this is Wyatt drawing that's an awesome hurricane, multicolored. Okay, we're going to do a better job and get these graphically up. But this is what I want to encourage you guys for our free-form Fun Time Friday, all right, is pictures, stories that we can all share together. Because, again, we're all the eyes and ears. And it takes a village to stay out ahead of these severe weather situations. And, you know, that's the most important thing, is that we take this time when it's beautiful and sunny out today to learn what our action plan is and know everything we can.
So first things first, know your county.
Know your county and city.
Yeah.
Have a plan. In fact, why don't we do that? I'll encourage all the students to have a plan. How about you guys write out the plan for your family, okay? Take the initiative. Say,
idea.
Mom, Dad, brothers and sisters, here's what we're going to do. If a severe storm is threatening our house and we're home, first thing is get inside. And that could be a car or it can be a home. Those are both safe. But have that plan. Which room are you going to go to? How long are you going to stay in there? What are you going to take in there with you? Write all that out, and we'll share some of those coming up Friday.
And how do you get your weather alerts? That's important too.
Absolutely. Ken's 5 app, you're already on Facebook. That's a key ingredient with this. I say ingredient, but key resource in the event of a severe weather situation, because we're going to be there. I mean, that's something important, and we take very seriously. We're a public service at Ken's 5. The most important thing we do is keep you alive when severe weather is going to hit, because there will be a case where it hits again. All right? Any closing thoughts?
You have Reading Wednesday. I'm excited to see the voices.
It's going to be really cool.
Or hear the voices, rather.
Big Reading Wednesday is coming tomorrow, okay? And we're going to do a different book each Wednesday, so for the little ones. And the first one is one of my favorites because it teaches while it has some fun. I mean, that's the whole idea with all these.
Right, so Dr. Seuss will be fun.
It's
I
a
hope
blast.
you just change the character voices a little bit. I know Paul
Pressure's on. I might have to rehearse. But thanks for joining us. We love you guys. God bless you. Thanks so much. And make sure, again, tell everybody, these videos will stay online here on Facebook. They're also on YouTube. And I think beginning tomorrow, we're going to be looking to put it on the Ken's 5 app as well. Okay? That's going to wrap things up from here. Hope you have a wonderful Tuesday. Take care, everybody.